Okay, well, tonight we're continuing in the Tzurba and Hilchot Shabbat. We're in volume number 21, the Flax Family edition, the Mirvis Family volume. We're on page 127. Take a Sefer Rabotai, it's in front of you, the best ways to learn out of the book. Page 127. And in this volume so far, we've been having really practical malachos, stuff that happen on a weekly basis, stuff that can happen on the Shabbos, because a lot of the malachos that are the 39 are not really negeya on the halacha, the ma'asadik level. A bishul is, boyer is, but these are one of them. And we're starting today the malacha of toifer. What's toifer?
Sewing.
Sewing. So sewing. Toifer. How do you want to say it? Tofer? All right. Tofer. And Korea. What's Korea? Korea. That's the opposite, which is ripping it up. Yeah. I learned that 25 years in their yeshivas. Okay. So let's take a look. We're starting with the Mishnah. Source number 1 is a Mishnah in Masechet Shabbat, Ayin Gimel, Amud Aleph. What's that Mishnah famous for? Ayin Gimel, Amud Aleph in the Bavli. That is the list of all 39 malachim. So if you want to know the list, page 127 in our books, Shir Gimel. If you ever want to know where the list of all 39 malachas are found in the Mishnayot, it's found in the 7th parak, and in the Gemara, it is an Ayin Gimel Amud Aleph. So, says the Mishnah, you already know this Mishnah, you have 40 minus 1, so 39 malachas, and one of the malachas is HaToifer. The HaToifer Shete Tefirot, sewing 2 stitches. That means he takes the needle with the string on it and he goes in and out. He did 2 needle moves in the beged. So 2 stitches. HaToifer Shete Tefirot.
1 stitch.
It's 1 stitch. That's correct. It's 2 movements, 1 stitch. Okay, and that's the malacha. That's the other malacha. And then the other malacha, which we're not going to see today, but is the flip side of tofer, is hakorea al minat litfor. It's someone who tears in order to sew 2 stitches. So sometimes you have to tear the garment in order to make a better stitch job, right? I saw this not necessarily with a garment, but I saw it when I got not this time where my tire went completely kaput, but the time before where I got a little hole in the tire. So you went there, they made a bigger hole, and then they were able to put something to patch it up. So you have to have a proper hole in order to do a proper work. So same thing over here. Hakorea al minat litfor. Okay, says the Gemara. Now we're flipping to Ayin Dalet Amud Beis in the Gemara. It's in your source on the same page. The Gemara is Ayin Dalet Amud Beis. The Gemara has a question. The Gemara says, you go in and out with a stitch. You didn't do anything. Meaning, we have in the malacha, we have 3 stages of doing something. For some malachot, you have what's called a permanent, right? For example, you're writing on Shabbat, kotev, right? If you write with ink, it's going to be permanent. If I write on a fogged up glass, that's temporary. If I write in the ear like this, or I write on someone's back, is that considered writing on Shabbat? Absolutely not. I didn't do anything. Just in the ear. Well, whatever. Doesn't make a difference. I'm not doing anything. Okay?
So clean the snow.
I'm not talking about cleaning snow. I'm talking about in the ear or on someone's back. There's nothing going on. I'm just going like this. Some people, the kids play the games. They make letters on each other's backs. Can you figure out what I'm saying? No problem with that. There's no real writing. So the Gemara's question here is, you put it in 1 stitch, 1 in, 1 out. You didn't do anything because it's not going to last. It's not going to stay there. The Gemara says, it's not the haloi kaima. Its stitching will not last. It's not going to stay in place. If you ever did any sewing, you put it in, but if you just put it in, you move it around, it's coming right back out. Oh, so very good. So Amar Rabbi Bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. What's this case? The who shikasharan. This is where he tied it afterwards. So he tied it into place. What's the question about tying it into place? What? Okay, you're right. He made it permanent. But which malacha is tying? Kosher, not tofer. Kosher is tying, tofer is sewing. So here you're telling me, oh, it is tofer when you tie it. It can't be. That's tying. Tying is tying, and sewing is sewing. So the Orchot Shabbat wants to tell us, don't confuse the two. There's actually a principal difference between tofer and between tying and kosher. Okay, what's the difference? So look in the Orchot Shabbat in source number 2 over here. What really is the difference? You're taking curtain, taking other things, and you are putting them together. So here he tells us the ikr bazeh. The melechet tofer, the inyana, is chibur yirus zu lezu. It's when you're attaching two separate things together. You're having two curtains and you are attaching it together. Whether you're attaching it with string, with sewing, or any other way, right? He writes over here. He takes two types of plastic curtains and he pressures them. He puts pressure on it until they cling together, till they come fused together. Well, guess what? Okay.
What about
No,
Sika?
that's
Sika.
not about Ziploc. Talking about he's fusing together two plastics.
Right. You take Sika, you put it together. That's
What's a sika?
Sika. Okay. No, it's not Zipper.
Oh, safety pin. We're going to see something else. Hold on. You're good. You're good. You bring up a good point. We're going to see that's going to be mutter. Safety pin is going to be mutter. But that's a very good point, by the way. And you have the carbon nisanel who doesn't like it and others. But let's take a look a little more. So then he says the inyan of toifer is attaching two things together. Now he writes on page 128 on the top. So what is kosher? Kosher, that involves threads and ropes, and through wrapping them together in a specific manner, a knot is produced. Kosher is you're making knots. Toifer is you're attaching things together. That's the difference. Okay? So here, in this case, in the Gemara, you were attaching two pieces together. So you did toifer, and then you tied in order to make it last. So it's kayama, but what did you do, Lamaisa? You added two things together. So that's toifer. Kosher is when you take something and just make a knot out of it. That's kosher. Toifer is when you add two items together. You're putting two pieces together. That's what he makes it as being the distinction between kosher and tofer.
So at the end, it's going to be right. It's going to be kosher at the end.
Well, it depends.
When you do
If the
tofer,
knot he made was a kosher type of knot, then it would be a problem of kosher. But if his knot wasn't a kosher type of knot, so then all you have an issue here is tofer. Okay, now let's take a look at the next source. Because really, no one's really walking around and what's it called? Sewing on Shabbat. No one's going around, hey, let me sew this up, right? But there might be something else that is more practical. Take a look at source number 3. Okay, this is similar to that button that's falling off. Let's take a look. Omar Rav Zutra Bar Tuvia Omar Rav. Hamotea chut shel tefira b'Shabbat. Right? Hayav hatat. One who stretches the thread of a stitch on Shabbat is hayav hatat.
Pulling it out.
Very good. Take a look at the picture on page 129. Look at that picture right there. Okay, and the picture's from the English oral edition of the Mishnah Berurah. And what happens is as follows. The guy's sleeve, you see over here, it got loose. It got loose. So he wants to wear the sleeve normally. So he knows if I just pull up the thread over here, it's going to tighten it up. Well, guess what? You just did tofer.
you did not.
You did.
You
Chayav hatat, what does that mean? The oraita.
you did kosher. You didn't do tofer.
No, kosher, I'm making a knot.
Right.
I didn't make a knot
So
here.
when you pull it up and you make shira, you didn't.
I reattached the two pieces together.
Pull it up.
Ah, you're right. That putting up is considered attaching. That's what the Gemara tells us. Just pulling it up is considered attaching. That's tofer. That's chayav chatat. And says the Shulchan Aruch. Says the Shulchan Aruch. If there was a chut shel tefira shenibetach that it got open, Aser lematcho mishum tofer. You're not allowed to tighten it because that is considered tofer. That's considered sewing on Shabbat. You can't do it. Says Mishnah Brura. You do it, you're chayav chatat. Now, says the Mishnah Brura. Now, 1 second. When is this happening? You have to have made something to make it last. Because if it's going to fall right back down, you didn't do anything. So you have to have made it last. Potter. Potter avo author. Potter in Hilchos Shabbos means potter, but you're still not on do it the Rabbanan. You're just not chayav chatat. Now, says in Mishnah Berurah, a very interesting point, but that's only true if you made 2 movements with the needle. But if you did 3 movements with the needle, chayav af below kesher. Even without tying it, you're going to be chayav. Why? What's the difference between 2 and 3? Very good. You already learned this sugya. Beautiful. Because when you do the third one is like the knot to the other 2. It holds it into place. You sew this one is loose, you're right, but the next needle I make holds that other 2 into place. So it's kayama then. Very good. What? With the stitches?
Surgical knife, yeah.
Hold on a second. I want to show you how he brings it down this lashon over here.
Yeah, but tight.
Here, sewing 3 needle penetrations with a thread is forbidden, even if one did not knot the ends, since by doing so, the string will remain in place. And he brings this from the Rambam. The Rambam in Hilchot Shabbat 10:9 says this. The third one is considered the knot of the other 2. Okay, very good. Shmirat Shabbat Kihilchata, source number 6.
But in this case, you have more than 3, and it's not holding it.
Okay, so you're right. So that's you're right, 100%. So in this case, so the Mishnah is saying that if you pick it up and it goes right back down, you didn't do anything. You're not allowed to do it, but you're not chayav chatat. It's patur v'laser, but you're still not allowed to do it, but you're not chayav chatat because it's not lasting. Now, the Shmirat Shabbat Kihilchata says it's forbidden to tighten the thread of a seam that has become loose to secure the seam. Now, what else is this? It's also forbidden to tighten the thread that connects a button to the garment when it's become loose. Sometimes your jacket or your coat, the button starts to come out. So what do you want to do? I want the button to work. So I want to tighten it, or I want to wrap it around on it. Well, you're tightening it at that point. That is going to be tofer, and you're not allowed to do that on Shabbat. Here he writes in here a button. He writes it outside the Tzurba, looking in the laws of Shabbat. A button that became loose may not be tightened on Shabbat, nor may one wrap extra string around the button in order to strengthen it. That's all going to be considered tofer. Many people don't know that. The button starts to come loose, right away they tighten it, right away they pull it around. They think, all right, what did I do? I didn't do anything. I didn't touch electricity, right? So I didn't do anything with Shabbat, nothing wrong.
What about the male geshem that I have the string here and I push it out?
Oh, very good. Kaddish, the next source. Look at source number 7. The Yalkut Yosef brings this. And he says it, Me'il Geshem. Okay? You have a Me'il Geshem. You have a raincoat. Source 7, page 129. Right there. There. Look inside. Okay. I have a string inside the hood of a raincoat. It may be pulled or loosened on Shabbat. Even though the pulling causes the hood to shrink and you're tightening it, right? Which we said could be considered topher. And loosening it releases it. There's no problem with topher here. Why? What's the klal over here? What are we saying it is?
Not permanent. It's
Not permanent, but we say even not permanent is there, but what else? What's the principle?
Shabbat says the to tighten the thread of a seam that has become loose to secure the seam.
What is the reason why it would be okay? Derech? What'd you say? Derech tashmisha. This is the way it's meant to be used. If the product was meant to be used this way, for example, nobody says I open and close the door on Shabbat, I'm being boino all day. Right? What are you doing? The wall, for example, I opened the door, I broke the wall. And I closed the door. I made a wall. No one says that. Why not? Because it's derech tashmisha. That's the way. Right. So we're going to see zipper is not a problem at all. But it's the derech tashmisha is meant to be used this way. Okay, you can use that at the same idea. So says Chamavadia, says in Yalkut Yosef, that what? So on the Mil Geshem, what about my pants, my drawstring on my pants, all right? My sweatpants, right? Anything. Anything that was put there, the strings were put there to tighten it up, to loosen up, that is fine on Shabbat, there, Tashmisho, and a person
Can you make
can use it.
Shira? Oh, you're not.
Well, yeah, we didn't do kosher. Kosher is the next group. You have to see which knots are permitted, which ones are not, and then you will see. Now, here comes the other question, and Rabbi Abraham Shevach already alluded to this when he said, "What about the safety pin? Can I use the safety pin? I'm connecting two clothings or two pieces or something else. I'm putting it together. Is that topher? You told me topher is when I take two ureas and I put them together through the string or some other way. It's attached. So what about a safety pin? So starts off with the Korban Nesanel. The Korban Nesanel is a commentary on the Rosh, on Masechet Shabbat. And he writes, listen, he says, I'm in amazement. I'm in wonder. Me'ein nohagin ha'olam. Where did the people come to be accustomed to use this needle? And he gives its lashon in Ashkenaz, shtekandel, and some other type of kriz, shputza, all sorts of needles that they use on Shabbat in their clothing, attaching clothing together. And he says, similarly, the Noshim in Prague are also doing this. He says, I don't know where they're getting this, that they're allowed to do this. They're attaching clothing together using a safety pin or some other needle or something like that. In fact, the Mishnah Brura in source number 9 says that really, yesh aimim de aser, va'afil lo aser kesher klal, va'alkein otan ha'anoshim, shetochivin akriz im beged, and they take and they're using these needles, and they're putting it together, lo yishaper avdei, they're not doing right. And he's bringing the Korban Nesanel, and he's saying that's the halacha, says the Mishnah Brura, that you're not supposed to use safety pins and needles. That's what the Mishnah Brura says. That's the Korban Nesanel.
They're not permanent.
And you're right. So let's take a look at the Chazon Ish. Chazon Ish is taking your tzad. Chazon Ish says, what do you want from safety pins and needles? They don't do anything. So he says, first of all, pay attention to the Korban Nesanel. He says, the Korban Nesanel never said it's aser. He said, I'm wondering how come people are doing this. Okay? And then he writes over here, the Chazon Ish, and if it was really the wrong thing, there were people, Uzmanenu, Hayuga Madinim, they would stand up when they saw something wrong. And all the nation were religious people. They wouldn't do wrong things. So if nobody said anything, nobody did anything, nobody made a mention except the Korban Nesanel, it must have been that it was okay. And his rationale on page 132, and he says, on page 132 in the bold, he says, when you are using the pin, what are you doing? It appearance such that its appearance proves that it's not sewing, but simply okay, it's just a simple attaching for temporary, and there's nothing really going on there. It's not even sewing at all. It's just temporarily just putting something together for a moment or two, and it's not considered taifer. He said there's no reason to be machmer at all. So the Chazon Ish says, safety pins, needles, that's not in the gather of sewing on Shabbat. That is completely permissible.
It's more kaftor.
Like a button, you're saying.
It's like a button.
Okay.
You close it up
So Shmirat Shabbat Kilchatza says the same thing. Shmirat Shabbat Kilchatza says it's permissible to fasten a pin to a garment and make it narrow to join two parts of a garment that became torn. It's permissible to use a safety pin in place of a button that became detached.
Yep.
But if possible, he says, if possible, if it's possible, put it in only once and not twice into the garment. What he's trying to do, right? The homalach of taifer is you put the needle in twice. So he's saying, don't put it in twice, so then you definitely don't have any problem. But that's only if it's possible. If it's not possible, in the Shemesh B'Kachat say, you can put it in as many times as you need into the bagging.
We don't have this concept of like one stitch is already considered half the malacha type thing.
Apparently not. Apparently he's saying it has to be two. That's the minimum. That's the minimum. Over here in the Yalkut Yosef, he brings the Yalkut Yosef in source 12. For some reason, I wanted to read it from this edition outside of the Tzurba. I like the way he put it over here. So here he writes, it's permissible on Shabbat to pin a garment without using any thread. This is not the act of malacha of toifer whatsoever. Sewing according to halacha means joining cloths together using threads, not pins or needles. It's permissible to thrust the pin through fabric, and listen to his lashon, 3 or even more times. So he's saying, not like say be careful only once.
Who's this?
This is the Alkut Yosef, David Yosef. Furthermore, it's permissible to pin up a garment using safety pins and even to thrust the pin through the fabric several times. The common custom is as described here. Therefore, if someone wishes to attach a fallen button to a garment with a safety pin or to hold together a torn garment with a pin, it is permissible. So using safety pins in any way on your clothing, with the button, without the button, with the clothing, this and that, on Shabbat, safety pin needles are permissible. It's not in the gather of Taifer at all. Okay? That comes out regarding the safety pins and needles. Let me just see what I wanted to bring out. Anything over here?
Case closed.
Case closed. Ah, good. Nigmar. Okay, we're gonna see that later. Fine. We're gonna see that. I put it here, but we can see that later. All right, next inyan. All right, so now we already saw this somewhat. We talked about temporary sewing, right? And we said still potter of alasar, you're not allowed to do it. There is a case in the Gemara. There's a case in the Gemara when someone gets back his shirt from the dry cleaner. So apparently in the olden days, when you sent your clothes to the dry cleaner, at least the shirts, they would take the shirt and they would close up the neck area. The neck and the collar, they would close it up. They would either sew it or they would tie it. Okay? I'm not sure I missed. That's the way they probably, maybe it was easier to clean that way. It was all tied together. I'm not sure why they did it, but that's the way it was done. Came back to you. When they took it, they would do that, so they would clean it, and then you would get it back. So now the question is, I'm walking into my walk-in closet on Shabbat. I got it back from the launderer, from the dry cleaner, and here I find my collar tied up or sewed up. Can I now use this on Shabbat? Can I open it up? Can I open up the tie? Can I open up the sewing? Here, this right here, this part where your neck goes through gets tied up, either tied up or sewed up.
Well, with the butt, with the
that come with the closed pocket. So you just remove it. You remove the thread.
Okay, we'll see that. We'll see that in a moment.
Is it the same?
It could be. Yes. It is. Also, that would be when you get your socks from the store and they have a pack of socks and there's a string in between them. All right. Sometimes they sell shoes and there's a string in between the two. So all these things we're going to see. But right now we're going to start with the way it was in the times of the Talmud. So they got back their shirts. Guy walks in to take his clothing on Shabbat and he finds it either tied or sewed. So can he open it, the tied one or the sewed one? So that's what the Gemara picks up. We're on source 13. So we write, Matirin bet hatzavar b'Shabbat. One may untie the neck, opening of the garment on Shabbat. Untying, this is the problem, not a problem.
yeah, but what?
Aval lo putin.
Oh,
But you cannot open it up. Okay? So that's what the Gemara says. So that means if I have a sewing there, now what type of sewing is that? Temporary. The guy just did it as a launderer. He's doing it to clean the clothing. He sewed it up. So what do you see? It must be that sewing temporary is a problem. Because if I cannot open it up, that means if I cannot open up a temporary one, it means I cannot sew a temporary one. So let's take a look in the Hagos Mordechai, and he actually brings the Machloket, the Riva, and Rabbeinu Yoel. Okay? So says the Riva. Says Hagos Mordechai. The Riva explains, it's permitted to untie the neck opening if it was tied, because that's not a problem. But if it was all temporary. The real question is, remember what I said about the writing? You have the permanent writing with the ink.
Yeah.
You have the temporary writing on the fog glass, and you have the nothing when I do it in the air. The question really is, does temporary, not all malachas have temporary, not every single malacha, you can say there's something temporary or permanent. Question is, does it apply, temporary, permanent, does it apply by tofer? That's the real question. So says the Riva, by tying, we know that such a thing as a temporary tie. Therefore, you can untie it, right? Person can make a tie on Shabbat, untie it, tie it, still temporary. But the neck was sewn shut or stuck together like a shoemaker join a pair of shoes, right? They put them together. It's forbidden to detach them. This is why Shalom matzinu chiluk ben tefira shel kaima letefira she'ena shel kaima, because there's no difference between a permanent and between a temporary sewing. It's all the same sewing. The same way you're not allowed to do a temporary, same way you're not allowed to do a permanent one, you're not allowed to do a temporary, same way you're not allowed to open up a permanent, you're not allowed to open up a temporary. That's the riba. But then he brings the Rabbeinu Yoel. The Rabbeinu Yoel mater afilu b'tefira. Rabbeinu Yoel says no. There is such a thing called temporary sewing by the malacha of Tofer. And now why over here? Here he wants to say that here the issue was in the time in this Gemara. This was the first time. It wasn't that you gave it to the launderer and he gave it back to you. No, it was that you bought it like that. And it was brand new. And now you're going to be mitakin mono, you're fixing something, you're making the keli, you're making this vessel, you're making this baguette for the first time usable, which is a different issur on Shabbat. But he says that you're allowed to opening the neck, even if it's sewn. Since it's not made to remain permanently, we say so similar. Later, Masechah Shabbos and the Riva, citing the Rashbam, writes similarly. So you have Rabbeinu Yoel and you have the Rashbam, and they seem to say that there is something called temporary sewing, and you would be allowed to open it. In the case of the Mishnah, is different.
It all depends how it's tied up. If that with the paper, then you have to rip off the paper. That mutter.
Let's see.
If you're talking about a clip that goes like this and you have to pick it up, a clip that you only pick it up, that I can understand, that's no problem.
We're talking here between a tying and sewing. So we're saying that according to some, sewing, there is no temporary. A temporary sewing is considered complete sewing. You're not allowed to open it up. The Shulchan Aruch, who does he go with? Does he go with the Riva or does he go with the Rabbeinu Yoel? So take a look at the Shulchan Aruch in source 15. Interesting case. You have the sleeves of the garments. They have a string there. It's not a pull string like a drawstring, like for your. Yeah, it's not like your raincoat or your pants. It's a real string. Not it's not.
They don't have this stuff anymore.
They don't have this anymore. Yeah, page 136. You have the picture.
Similar to his hoodie on the.
No, it's not. It's not. There, it was meant to be used that way, and in and out all the time. And this is not. This it kind of strengthens the baguette. It really ties it up.
Like a belt. It has like
Similar to his hoodie.
yeah.
Not similar to the hoodie, because look at the Shulchan Aruch says. Shulchan Aruch says those who fasten their garments around their arms using a string that's taut to tighten, it's forbidden for them to pull it tight, unless the holes in the sleeve are somewhat wide and fitted with stitching around them. When they're made with stitching around them, then they're made as a drawstring, and then that would be permissible. That's a derech tashmisha. That would be fine. But in this case, it's not considered that way, and it's considered that I'm tightening something. And the Shulchan Aruch says you can't do that on Shabbos. Why not? It's only temporary. Ooh, must mean the Shulchan Aruch holds what? Temporary sewing is problematic on Shabbat. That's the Shulchan Aruch.
It's not putting.
It's tightening that area might be.
You said sewing is putting two pieces together.
Right. So it must be that there's pieces there.
Shrinking and opening it.
It must be that there are pieces there that it's tightening up. And that's going to be a problematic. It says the Shulchan Aruch. You can't do that.
If that's the case, the sweatpants, you're not allowed to tie. You're not allowed to tie your shoelaces.
So the sweatpants and the raincoat, they're made that way. They have a stitch around it. It's meant to come in, meant to come out. It's a derech tashmisho. This case, whatever it is, we're not familiar with this type of shirt. No,
There's no.
we're gonna see the Chacham Uvadia doesn't. He's gonna go like this Shulchan Aruch. He's gonna say like this Shulchan Aruch. That's why I'm trying to make a distinction between you. There's a distinction between the drawstring and this piece over here. This one, for whatever reason, is not considered a drawstring. All right, and it's not considered derech tashmisho, and therefore closing it up on Shabbat, even temporary, says the Shulchan Aruch, is going to be problematic. Now,
what those knapsacks that with string you pull out and you close the mouth,
and they have the thing on it,
and you open
and it's
them
meant
out.
to do that.
The same thing.
He's saying it's not. He's saying it's not. I hear you, but he's saying it's not. And he's saying the halacha is that you can't do it even though it's temporary, which means that you can't tighten, you can't sew even temporary. Says the Mishnah Berurah. Says the Mishnah Berurah, they used to place a string into the sleeve of one's arm, on one's arm, so that everyone wishes to tighten, he would pull the string taut and it would tighten well. And then some are wide and fitted, and then it's not at all similar to towing, since it looks like one who inserts hooks into the loops. It says when you have it tight, when it's wide and fitted, when it's made dafka this way, it doesn't look like it's sewing. It looks like you're putting in hooks. Then that's the drawstring, says the Mishnah Berurah. But if it's 95 on the regular, same plus concerning loosening in it when much right. So here's the drawstring. Look and Mishnah Berurah 16, source 16, 29. There he writes it. He says since it's too open, it's too open. I think that's the issue over here. Look, look at the drawing better, Abutai. Hey, that's what the Mishnah Berurah is saying. You see the big holes where the string is going in?
Yeah.
He says it's too big of a hole. It's not a drawstring. The drawstring is when it's narrow, it's fitted, it's meant in and out. That's fine. This is too big of a holes. And here you're loosening it's and you're stretching, you're putting it together. He's saying that's the problem. That's the way the Mishnah Berurah explained it. So it's a different case.
What about your belt on your pants with the loops? The same thing.
Well, don't do about the belt right now. Hold on. I don't know anything about the belt yet. I don't wear belts. All right, I'm wearing belts, but let's say right now I don't know anything about belts. I haven't yet seen the invention of belt.
The loops.
All right, let's go now to this issue. So it seems the Shulchan Aruch said over here, based on what the Shulchan Aruch says, temporary sewing is a problem. The Ramah did not say anything on this. The Ramah doesn't argue. But there's another Ramah in Shin Yud Zayin. The Ramah writes over here, it's forbidden to detach or cut a pair of shoes that are sewn together in a manner that craftsmen do. You get a pair of shoes that's attached together, you can't cut it on Shabbat, even though the stitches are not permanent, right? So you get the socks together, the shoes together, the jacket piece together. Says the Ramah, you can't open it, even though it's not permanent, since the Ein Chiluk B'Tfira Ben Shalkayim and Shalkayim. That's the Riba. And says V'yesh Matirin. Says the Ramah, and some are Mekel, like who? Like the Rebbeinu Yoel, who said there is something considered Tefira Shein Kayim. And B'Tfira Shein Shalkayim. Now he writes here over here, says the Ramah, the Ein Lahater B'Fnei Am Haaretz. But don't do this in front of an Am Haaretz.
What?
You have a temporary sewing. Okay, so you got the shoes from the shoemaker and it was attached with it, or you had the sock that was attached, or the jacket was attached. So he's saying, well, jacket might be another issue because you're making a pocket, but let's just say they use the shoes that's attached together with the string, or the sock that's attached with the string. He says, if you're going to do it, the Am Haaretz is going to see, he's not going to know it's a temporary sewing. He's going to think any sewing you can open up. So therefore, don't do it in front of Am Haaretz.
What's the inyan with the Am Haaretz?
Because Am Haaretz is going to mess everything up.
Why do I have to be involved with Am Haaretz?
You know how many things the Am Haaretz messed for us? The Am Haaretz didn't make problems for us. We would be able to use hot showers on Shabbat, okay? Hot it up from before and use it on Shabbat. They came in and made issues for us. We can't use it anymore. If the Am Haaretz in, we have to be very careful. They keep messing up everything for us.
So you got to keep away from Am Haaretz?
No, you got to teach them better.
Keep away from them. Get out of it.
No, teach them better. Okay. I always, I had once a chiddush, Am Haaretz, right? The nation of the land, right? Of the ground. There's something very special about the Haaretz. The Haaretz, the Adoma, right? The ground, you plant it, what happens? Things grow. That's an Am Haaretz. The Am Haaretz, they're to the ground, but you got to plant them. You got to put them in, you got to treat them well, water them, and then they're going to grow. They're going to be tzaddikim. You have to teach them. Okay. Okay, so now the question is, how come the Ramah in Shin Yud Zayin says there's a difference between Tefira Shel Kayima and Tefira She'eina Kayima? And how come in Shin Mem he doesn't say anything? That's Tehillah David's question. So Tehillah David says you can answer that when is the Ramah lenient? Only by tearing. In Shin Yud Zayin, we're talking about taking apart the shoes. In Shin Mem, we're talking about putting it together. So perhaps when putting it together, Tefira She'eina Kayima is still a problem, even according to the Ramah. Separating it, that's not a problem when it's only a temporary sewing. Shmirat Shabbat Kilchata, Says B'Shem Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. The truth is, the Ramah was always Mekel, whether making a temporary sewing on Shabbat or taking apart a temporary sewing on Shabbat. That was his real, the real understanding of the Ramah according to Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. And Shinyan Zayin is the one to go with. Whereas the Chazon Ish takes the other run around. He says, don't look at Shinyan Zayin. That's not what the Ramah really meant. Go with Shin Mem where he doesn't say anything, and even the Ramah doesn't let temporary sewing neither to remove it or to put it into place. What do we do? Says here Rabbi Nachshon in his sefer as follows. And you tell me, who do we go like according to this at least? And he brings this. I did not see this inside, but he brings it B'Shem Hazon Ovadia, Shabbat, volume 5, pages 71 through 74. If someone wants to go through it, but listen what he says. One may cut a plastic strand that attaches clothing to one another, such as when opening a new pair of socks, since the item that connects the two items is only temporary. But then he writes, one should do so where? In private, right? You don't want the audience to see that. So therefore you do it in private. What about, here's his next question here, Albertai. Yeah, sometimes, and I know, but my kids, my daughter sometimes come over and they say, this tag in the back is very, very annoying and itchy. Can you take it off on Shabbat? It's not permitted to cut a label, such as washing instructions or a brand and the size of a clothing for a piece of clothing, since it is sewed into the clothing and it's meant to be permanent there. It's a tefillah shel kayama.
Correct, but it's breaking.
That's Korea. Korea is the other form of topher, the other side of it. Can't do it.
Yeah, but you said, yeah, in order to install.
Right, but we're gonna see. We're gonna see the Rabbanan even if it's not.
Correct, I'm not saying that.
We're talking the Raisa. We're talking about halacha. The Raisa, you can't do it.
What about the price tag?
You can't do it. What?
The price tag that's stuck behind.
So the
They
price tag. The price tag. So tell me, the price tag is permanent or temporary?
Temporary.
All right, depending how much you spend on it. If it's $2,000, you want everyone to see it, so you leave it on, and it's permanent. But if it's otherwise, no, if it's temporary. If it's temporary, then you can take it off. You can take it
With
off.
scissors? Cut it with scissors?
You cut. If you're allowed to cut it with scissors, if it's a scissor is malachta shel iser, but if you're allowed to use it for appropriate thing, then you can use it. If it's mutter to use it, use it.
Thank
Okay.
You're not
Right, kishlachta iser that you can use for a heter thing, you're allowed to use it.
a scissor.
What do you use this for everything?
To cut lettuce, to cut other things that you're allowed to cut. If this is mutter to cut, then you're allowed to cut it. Yeah. Cut the chicken. You can use a hammer to crack the nuts, whatever it is. If it's a cleave, shalachta l'isser, but using it for a heterotic thing, right? Tzarech gufo, it'll be mutter. But most people in my size see when they cut these type of strings, they usually either pull it apart with their hands or they do use a knife. I from what I've seen, I don't see people actually using scissors. But you are right that if it's a mutter thing to cut in tzarech gufo, you should be allowed to use it. Okay, fine. So that's on the issue of tefillah shel kayma, tefillah shel kayma. Now, coming to some more exciting issues is what about gluing and taping? I'm gluing things together. So that's the Rambam. Take a look at the Rambam on page 138, source 21. 138, source 21, the Rambam. He writes over here, Hamidavik Nairos, someone who glues papers or oiros or hides with the glue, b'kolan shel sofrim, with the glue of a bookmaker. V'chayoytze boy, arei zeh, toldat tofer v'chayev. It's tofer and he'll be chayav. So it's a tolda, chayav deraisa. So glue. What when you post it? Oh, we're gonna see in a minute. We're gonna see. We're gonna see. You're gonna get there. Give me a few minutes. It's on page.
The Simon.
Here. This one he's talking about. Yeah, the siman to put on the side. We're gonna get there. It's on
use it.
page 144. Okay. Shulchan Aruch writes like the Rambam that if you have glue or you have other things, it's going to be a tolda of tofer. Let me just see something over here. He writes in the Yalkut Yosef. Right. The same would be if he takes them apart. That would be Korea. Tolda of Korea. Okay, fine. Now, here comes the other issue. Okay. Diapers and bandages. And there's 3 issues with both diapers and bandages.
Those are well Velcro.
If it's Velcro, you're good. If it's Velcro, you're in the problem. But bandages are not Velcro.
Oh, that
Doesn't it have like a clip thing where?
So a clip thing, okay, wouldn't be a problem. But some bandages, most bandages that you have, like you put a Band-Aid on your finger, they're sticky, they're adhesives. Now, if you put it on the body itself, not a problem. There is no typher to the body. Okay? But sometimes what do you do when you go around, you go over it. So I'm gluing it together. Okay? But you have more than just one problem. Look in that box on page 138. You have 3 issues here. First of all, in the example of the Band-Aid, what do you first have on the Band-Aid when you take it out of the package? You have a paper already attached to the Band-Aid, to the sticky part. So I'm doing Korea first. I'm separating. Then I'm now attaching it. So I'm now doing diaper. And then when I'm finished with it, by the diaper, for example, I take it off and I close it up again, and I'm doing another tofer and I'm throwing it out. So you have multiple issues with bandages and with diapers. So Lamasa, can we use it? How do we use it? What's the process? So we'll start off with the Rochot Shabbat. And he says the problem, look, you're taking off the Band-Aid, you're taking off the paper there, it's Korea, it's what's going on over here?
So you're not allowed to put the baby diaper?
That's the question, can you? Or you have to get, like Gabriel said, the Velcro ones, which Velcro is not a problem.
I don't think diaper is in the
Ah, so very good. So you're in good company. Shlomo Zalman Auerbach says, I know what you're talking about. He says, listen.
Because you never changed the diaper.
He didn't, or Shlomo Zalman did it.
Then what? That's what.
Okay. Okay, so he says, first of all, he says, that paper that they put on the Band-Aid that you take, is put to be temporary. That's not meant to be there forever. First of all,
It's wax now.
it's temporary, number one. And then someone will say, 1 second, only temporary. It could sit on the shelf for a year before it gets sold, right? It's good for 5 years.
It's purposely sitting there to be
So he says, very good. So Gabriel says, the second idea of Shlomo Zalman Auerbach says, 1 second, there's no type here at all. It's hanacha ba'alma. They just placed it there. It's not to be attached. It's not for attaching. There is no attachment here. It's just something there so you'll be able to use it later. It's hanacha ba'alma. That's the other in the Rochot Shabbat, why it shouldn't be a problem. So Lisa, taking off the tab, taking off the thing, seems to be okay. And so far, ain't baya. Okay? It's hanocha ba'alma. It's not meant to be permanent. Okay, fine. What about fastening the tab? Now, actually putting it together. Now you're doing tofer. So is it a problem? Is it not?
No, if your body is not a topher, it's okay.
If it's not on the body.
Oh, if it's not on the body.
Putting it onto the Band-Aid, and a lot of times the diaper goes onto the diaper. So it's not onto the body. Now, says Rav Avadia Yosef, look in the Yechevedah on source 26. It would seem that in our case of taping a bandage on fabric, although the attachment is not made to remain, one should be strict. He writes, Yesh lahachmer b'zeh ledat maran Shulchan Aruch. Because the Shulchan Aruch said temporary sewing is a problem. So he's saying maybe you shouldn't be allowed to use it. The Rak ledat haramah, just the Ramah who said there is Vira Sheini Kayama, and that would be okay. So you see, Chamavadia is taking like the Shulchan Aruch. He says Shulchan Aruch understands that temporary sewing is a problem. Vim Kain, the Gam Ladas Maran, right? If something according to our master, although it's permissible to separate the tabs, right? The how you say ha'isplanit b'Shabbat nekol makom aser lahalvish. You're not allowed to put it on because you're doing temporary sewing, and according to Maran Shulchan Aruch, you're not allowed to do temporary sewing. But he says mikol makom kiven sherabim b'apoiskim matirim af legabe tvira she'enish l'kayimo. Right? There's many poskim permit when it's a temporary sewing, even though Rabbi Yosef didn't bring it at all. I'll call upon him, but because a bigodim she'ain darkim bekach. When we lean with this respect attaching on, which is not considered a usual manner of gluing. Say really, it's not gluing. Just putting it in, putting it out. It's not. Well, I'm not gluing anything with myself. Right, there's Kashmisha. You want to say you want to add on? Fine. So anyway, I just wanted to point out to you, you understand? We said that he doesn't allow temporary sewing on Shabbat. Then we're taking away.
What
So
what's the adbaka explaining?
what?
What
The Band-Aid. Okay. Shabbat Kilchata says similarly, much like Rabbi Yosef, he's writing that it's what's it called? Diapers for the child, tab is fast on diaper to current child. One should be open. Fashion. Right? He doesn't see a problem also in it. So it's no problem. Okay. So far, taking it off not a problem, putting it on is not a problem, even though current Shulchan Aruch might be a problem, but we're going to be makel like the other poskim. And then the final thing, removing the diaper. Now I'm taking off the diaper, and what a lot of people like to do, and the diaper's got all these dirty things in there. So what do you want to do? You want to just close it up and throw it out.
No, you clean the baby.
Clean the baby, put all the wipes inside, and you want to wrap up the diaper and throw it out.
Yeah.
So he says, when removing the diaper, one should be careful not to fold it and tape it. Right? Why? Mishum shahadvaka zu nish'eret le'olam. V'arei begeder tfira gemura.
So the permanent.
But I'm closing it up. It goes to the garbage, and it stays in the garbage forever, tied up. I hear you. And some poskim say like you. It's like, what do you mean forever? It's not. I'm using it. I'm not using it. It's gone. It's garbage. It's until it gets to the garbage can, and then the garbage can open up. I don't care what happens there. The other poskim like say like you, but Chacham just says like this or Shabbat as well. One is be careful not to fasten the tabs of the diaper before disposing it in the trash, since the tab will remain that way forever. But Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, you seem to be going with Shlomo Zalman Auerbach the whole day today, Rabbi Abraham. You're on par with Shlomo Zalman Auerbach here. He disagrees. And he says, listen, come on. It's not on a permanent, since no one cares about it once it's in the garbage. When I'm using it, I care about it. When I'm using it, I don't care about it. So but in practice, someone comes and asks and says how to do it. Rabbi Laman, Rabbi Yosef, and everyone says you can use it normally, but when you take it off, make sure not to put it back together, and make sure you keep it separate. Okay. In the laws of Shabbat over here, he writes. On page halacha over here, diapers that have an adhesive glue tabs may be used on Shabbat, but should preferably, recommended not to be sealed before disposal. He writes today, like Rabbi Gabriel said, most of them are Velcro, and Velcro has no problem whatsoever. Okay, so that's a much better way of doing things. Velcro brand. Okay. So bandages, right? So band-aids, how do you use them on Shabbat?
For the diaper, what if you just seal one end of the tape around the without doing both of them
on one side?
It's not both, it's just one.
Doesn't make a difference. You still did tofer on one side. Oh, or you have a Shlomo Zalman Auerbach to be relying on. So we saw you can definitely put it on the Band-Aid, right? You can take it off, you can put it on. It's exactly like the diaper.
When it
Same idea.
When it overlaps on your finger.
What? Yeah, so you're gonna have that, just like you said, you're allowed to put it on what's it called? You're gonna be makel, like the Ramah. That that you can do it.
Okay.
You're gonna have to be makel. Okay, fine. That's on that as well. Okay, Rabotai. Few more in Yanim, and then we'll finish this part of the shir. Okay, now, can I use tape to tape back a page in the book? We're on page 142, source 30. Okay, sitting there with my daughter, and we're reading a book, and she's 2 years old, loves the page, pulls the page comes out, expensive book. I want to put it back right away. Just take a little piece of tape with it. Says Rabbi Tzion, can't do it. Why? Tefirah Shekayma. Right? That and that was the Rambam. The Rambam said gluing it, taping it, it's a problem. That's a tolda. So you're not allowed to do it. It's forbidden. What about staples? Can I staple? Can I staple papers together?
You're gonna unstable. I understand those. How do you call those loose leaves?
Yeah, binders.
The binders. Those are okay.
Okay, you're good. You're on. Everyone's on board today. Beautiful. Similarly, it's forbidden by Torah law to staple papers together, since the staple connects the paper with two holes. This is like sewing two stitches. But one may hold papers together with a paper clip. That's not a problem. Paper clip, it's an external connector and does not really join them together at all. You talked about the binder, and actually here in this sefer, he brings about the binder. And let's take a look over here. He says, permitted to place pages in a binder, even though the rings will hold all the pages together. But he makes a distinction here, and he brings us from the Shemot Shabbat, who says binder okay, but spiral notebook is a problem. Some of them have like the fancier things. They a lot of them. The whole it's not three. It's like a whole thing. The whole end is like pieces. You've seen it sometimes in some pamphlets.
It goes around.
It goes in. You put all the papers in and then you put them through.
Oh.
The black pieces you put them through. Spirals, yes. What? You could. What? People do it all the time as projects. We do it all the time. Yeah, in all the schools they do it all the time. They make that Haggadah Pesach and other things. They put it in these things. Yeah. So then he says, says that's the problem because it's more permanent. All right, that's his distinction over there.
But you have to take it off. It's not permanent.
Okay, you have room. You have room to say other things. You have room to say other things.
Album you can
I mean, nobody does.
What about Velcro? Okay, so we already talked about Velcro. Take a look at Rabbi Ribiat in source 32. Velcro fasteners are not considered a form of teifer at all, because it's derech tashmisha. Surfaces are designed to be fastened, unfastened as part of the regular use. Right? So there's nothing here, no malacha at all. You can use it short, long term, anything at all. One may use Velcro fasteners, shoes, clothes, slip covers, quilts, and the likes. Velcro is nicht a problema at all. What about zippers? He doesn't bring it over here, but he brings it in the footnote about zippers.
We talked about it.
So what about zippers? We talked about it. What do we say about zippers?
That we're allowed to.
So he writes over here.
Design this way.
All right, he here in Rabbi Nachshon wants to see a zipper like a button. A lot of button things on Shabbat. I'm not doing any teifer with buttons. So it's similar with a zipper, but here in the footnotes, he writes most poskim allow zippers. Some poskim, such as Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky and Rav Shmuel Vosner, said that zipping part of a garment to remain in place for extended period, like some of those old trench coats. You remember those coats that had the lining in the side?
Yeah.
Sometimes in the winter you could go ahead and put in the lining, and you want to stay for a long time. So according to Rav Yaakov and Rav Vosner, you're leaving there for a very long time. This is too long. They wouldn't want you to do that zipping on Shabbat. But we say zipping is not a problem. It's not considered tofer at all. What about magnets? Magnets.
Even Mosto is nothing.
It's attaching.
It's detaching also.
So he says no. He says yes. He says no. He says yes. Let's take a look. So those who say no have the Shminat Shabbat Kilchata and Rebbe Ribiat. They both say no. They say it's forbidden to place any magnetic item on a magnetic surface if one intends for it to remain there for some time, and one may not remove it from there. So, yes, you have the Rebbe Ribiat. They both want to say no. But the Chutcha Shani and Rabbi Yisrael Belsky, they allow using magnets. They say there's no subject of sewing by magnets. They're not truly attached. They're not attached.
What about these glasses?
They're not really attached. What is the Chutchani always say? The magnet is pulled toward the other item due to its magnetic field. And this is not considered an attachment that is subject to the version of sewing on Shabbat. There is no tofer by magnets according to Chutchani and Rabbi Yisrael Belsky. Here Rabbi Nachshon writes, it's permitted to use a magnet on Shabbat even if it will remain on the surface for an extended period of time. Okay? Here he doesn't bring the next case over here. Rabbi Nachshon brings, what about suction cups?
True.
No, not a public problem. Not
True.
The fish.
What you say?
Suction cup. You know what a suction cup is?
That you put. You
Explain
know,
to
the
us. I don't know how to
hook
say it in
on the
Hebrew.
top, suction cup on the top, the hook that you put. You know the vacuum.
Sometimes you want to attach something to a glass, right? They have the suction. You put it here and then you secure it. It stays like that.
Your
Suction.
phone. The phone, you put it on the second.
Right.
Phone holder on your window shield.
Right. So suction cup. So he writes over here, according to many poskim, it's not permitted to stick an item that has a suction cup attached to it onto a surface on Shabbat.
It's not permanent.
But he brings Ochot Shabbat who state that it is permitted, but you shouldn't leave it there for a long time. Okay. So you have and all these things, the magnets and suction cups and all these other things, they seem to have both sides in here, and that person should see what he needs to do. Now, the next case is, look at that picture, page 144. So this is what Rabbi Gabriel you talked about before, is the post-it notes.
Oh, yeah.
Post-it notes, flags.
Yeah.
It would be very, very convenient if one can use it on Shabbat. There are those who permit it.
Use it.
When I learned it back in yeshiva, they told me not to use it, so I don't use it personally. Although I feel it would enhance the shiurim a lot better, because a lot of time on Shabbat I have to remember where I saw what. Because if I'm learning it on Shabbat, I want to give it over on Shabbat, I don't have time to mark it down with a pen or marker or flag it.
I use it.
So, but Baruch Hashem, let's take a look. So the Shabbos home. This is Rav Simcha ben Mekoyin. He writes, it's forbidden to fasten adhesive of notes to any surface on Shabbat if they will remain attached for more than 24 hours. So he has a thing. If you're going to keep it there for more than 24 hours, it's a problem. So if someone told me, Eitzah, put it on Shabbat. Once the Shabbat comes, take it off, put it back on. Okay, so this way it wasn't attached for 24 hours. I know comes with the Shabbat, I'm not going to be looking at that sefer. So I don't want to do that. Rishal Belsky.
I'm going to show you.
You did that.
Let me finish up. Yeah. Right. Oh, what's a book dart? What does it do? Oh, that's so much smarter. You still have any issues? Right, Yisrael Belsky says halachically, Mikar didn't should be mutter to do, but he says I'm not posketing that way. That's pretty much what he says. Should be mutter, but he doesn't want to say it's okay. Shemet Shabbat Kilchata. He wants to say it should be permissible also. He says, however, you should detach them before Shabbat from their pad. Maybe he's looking, you're doing Korea, an extra step. Maybe don't have to do that. Separate them before Shabbat. Nishmat Shabbat says, use them, not a problem. You can use them. Here, what does he write? Here he writes, every next one writes as follows. And you can use this as your psak. Permitted to use post-it notes or stickers that are designed in a way that should be easily removed, can be used on Shabbat. So if it's an easy sticker to come off and on, you can use it, provided that one does not have intention to leave them there for an extended period of time. And he writes in the footnote, that means a week. That means a week. So although we had a forward opinion that said 24 hours, he said you can put it on as long as you don't mean to leave it on for more than a week.
Well, you're looking on 38 or what?
The last source. The Shema Shabbat seems to be saying you can use it completely.
So you're allowed to.
Yeah. So, but I'm looking at the laws of Shabbat. He said you can use it as long as you don't make sure and try not to keep it there for a week. So you have room to use it.
Yeah.
I learned in Torah Vedat, so I learned the psak. They taught me the psak of Rav Belsky said, which you should make it. It's okay to use, but we don't pass anyway. We don't actually do it. So for myself in practice, I don't use it, although I'm always tempted to use it. I have it next to my bookshelf. I'm like, come on, this would be so much easier for me. But this is my chumrah. But one would be during the week. Okay, I would say beautiful on Taifer. Bezat Hashem next week we'll look at Korea and how to detach these things. The halach is related to them. Shavua tov. Rabbi Hanina Mekashem Omer. Atzak Baruch Hu. What is that called Yisrael?